Representative Freiberg, would you like to move your bill to be before the committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would move that House File 274 be referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.
Thank you. Representative Freiberg moves that House File 274 be re-referred to Ways and Means. And with that, if you would please, do you want to do your DE2 first?
Yeah, I think I would like to move the DE2 amendment, and I can provide a brief description of it if it's helpful.
Okay, if you'd please discuss the amendment.
Sure. So the amendment would make the commission's designs go into effect on Statehood Day next year unless the legislature acts to change the plan, and it would make the legislators serving on the commission ex officio members. So I would move approval of the DE2 amendment to put the bill in the shape I would like it.
All right, thank you. And is there any conversation to the DE2, or may we get the bill in the author's desired form? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the DE2, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion prevails and the bill is amended. To your bill as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House File 274 has been in the works for several years, and both Representative Peter Fisher and I have worked on it. It would sunset the design of the state seal and flag with a commission charged with the task of coming up with new designs. As an initial matter, the bill would not mandate any specific design for the flag or the seal. We have a couple concepts here that have been floated. This one was sent to both Representative Fisher and I by a Minnesotan who's interested in the flag. Our lapel pins have another design, the Minnesota North Star flag, which is another idea that's been out there. But the bill before you would not require that either of these be ultimately chosen as the design that's used. So why redesign the seal and the flag? Well, there are two main issues with it. The first is an aesthetic one. The flag consists of the state seal slapped on a blue background. 20 states have similar flag designs, making Minnesota's flag virtually indistinguishable from those flags. And I draw your attention to a handout from the North American Vexillological Association called Good Flag, Bad Flag. The Minnesota flag fails each of the 5 principles listed in that document. I have red-green color blindness, so design is not my strong suit. The testifiers will talk about the design of the flag in greater detail. The second issue is with the imagery on the seal itself. Seth Eastman designed the seal in 1861 to show a settler plowing a field beside the Mississippi River. A banner shows the state motto, L'Étoile du Nord. And in the background, a Native American on horseback rides towards the setting sun. Now, the background materials you were provided show an excerpt from a poem written by Seth Eastman's wife that describes the intent of their drawing on the seal. And it's not a stretch to call it genocidal towards Native Americans. I'll read an excerpt of this poem, and I don't enjoy reading it, but I think it's important just to ground us kind of in the unsettling history behind the seal. So the poem reads, "The red man's course is onward. We claim his noble heritage, and Minnesota's land must pass with all its untold wealth to the white man's grasping hand." The genocidal intent behind the seal is appalling to me, and there's no reason it should be on our flag or our seal. In 1983, the seal was redesigned. The direction of the Native American was changed. He now rides toward the farmer rather than away from him. But in my mind, and in the mind of many I've spoken to, there's no reason to retain the flag or the seal, particularly given its troubling origins. We need a flag we can be proud of, one that is not a cluttered genocidal mess where you can't even tell from a distance if it's flying upside down. A design made by a diverse group of experts. Commissions evaluated and updated the flag in 1892 and 1955, so the idea of updating the flag that underlies this bill is nothing new. In your packets and posted on the committee website are resolutions of support from 3 of Minnesota's sovereign tribes. It's time for a new flag and seal that reflects the best of Minnesota. I hope you will support this bill, and I'd like to turn it over to Representative Fisher and then to our testifiers.
Thank you. Representative Fisher, welcome to the committee. Please begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Claiborne. Thank you to the committee for the opportunity to help present on this bill here. Originally, the idea for changing the state flag came to me back in 2017 when 2 high school students from Alameda High School contacted me, Jack Lackman and Thomas Atkins. They've been very much involved in this process. Unfortunately, back then they were high school students. They're now in college, and so they were not able to be here today. And the reason they came up to me with the flag is they were very much interested in flags overall. They did a lot of, when they were growing up, they always did a lot of drawing of the different flags that are out there, et cetera. One of the problems they had is that our flag was extremely complicated. It was hard, as was mentioned, it's hard to distinguish from others. They felt also that it had symbolism on it with the state seal that was very troublesome. And they wanted to be able to have something that was a better representation of what our state is, what our brand is. And this is one of the things that they focused on, is that many flags in some states have become their brand. And if you think of a company, you think of Target with a brand, they've got a big red dot, circle with a dot in the market, and everybody knows what that is. That's what they like to see our flag as, something that's easy for people to remember what it is so that a kid could draw it from memory. And that's where you get more pride and ownership in your flag. And when they were focusing on it, they were recognizing that there's some things that we want to do. Besides keeping it simple, it's just having a few colors on it. The designs you see here are relative of that. There are also other designs out there that are also very simple along those lines. They want to make sure that it's got that is meaningful to our state, and making sure that we try to keep it from getting too cluttered with letters and other things that are hard to see from great distance. And that's one of the things that they had mentioned to me, is that, well, when we're up close like this, we can see the details on the flag, but when you've got the Minnesota flag hanging somewhere, it's not unusual that it gets hung upside down, because people can't even tell it what's the right side up or upside down when you're hanging it. And from a distance, you can't even tell what the details are. And those are the kind of things you want to be able to have, that kind of ownership. And those were some of the key things that were motivating. This is a bill that we've been working on for quite a while, and I'm glad we're to this point here and be able to move it over the line to have a state flag that not only can we take pride in, but will be able to serve as our brand image going forward, that anybody can be able to remember from memory to draw. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Fisher. I understand you have a few testifiers today. Chair Freiberg, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
All right, if I could please ask Chairman Kevin Jensvold from the Upper Sioux community to please come forward. Welcome, Chairman Jensvold. It's great to have you with us today. If you'd please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kevin Jensvold. I serve as the tribal chairman for the All-Medicine Dakota people, identified by the United States of America and CFR 25 as the Upper Sioux community. I want to thank you, Madam Chair, for acknowledgement of Dakota lands, that your lawmakers and your laws are created on lands that historically belong, in a sense, and I use the word belong in a very difficult, it doesn't fit into our language nor our culture, but the responsible parties for this land are the Dakota people. For historical perspective, 1805 Pike Treaty was signed by 2 of 7 tribal leaders, and that was good enough for the United States to acquire this land that we're on right now for the price of $2,000. Supposed to be $200,000, but somewhere along the line, one of the accountants must have moved the decimal point, and it ended up being 2,000. Those are things probably that most Minnesotans don't consider or ponder, but as the original caretakers of this land, our Garden of Eden, if you will make a biblical analogy, exists right over here, called B'nai Dota. The confluence of those rivers just to the east of here is one of our creation stories. I want to acknowledge some people here as well, as long as committee members, because again, from a cultural perspective, I would be remiss if I didn't say mitakeapi to Chia Ron and Tangshia Cindy and Tonja Heather and Toshka Sam behind me. Those are our young indigenous people, and I see them here today, and I'm grateful for them. But I'm here today to talk about, I guess, that state flag. I've served the Yellow Medicine people now for 18 years. In those 18 years, I've made comment to Governor Pawlenty, Governor Dayton, and now Governor Walz about the problem that that flag poses to people who will take the time to dissect and decipher the meaning and draw conclusions as to what that truly represents. In my mother's culture, we have a flag. It's called Wapaha. A Wapaha was integral part of who we were, culturally speaking, because we traveled in small bands of people. Again, environmentally cognizant and aware of our impact on the land. We never ever gathered very often in large places there to protect the resources. But the Wapaha would identify that band and would tell the story of who they were. So when you've seen that Wapaha coming, that staff, if you will, that we would know who our relatives were. And so I don't envy your discussion or this bill, because a flag represents a people, what they stand for, what their morals and values and things like that. We choose to stand behind a flag. We choose to stand up for a flag. We choose to put it in places of prominence to demonstrate who we are. And I look at that seal, and I represent 549 tribal members. 204 of them are less than the age of 18 who in this day and age need to be talked for, need to be protected, need to be stood up for, need to be defended. One of them asked me, why is there a gun pointed at the Indian head? And so I will disagree with Representative Freiberg that 20 of these flags are very similar, because I don't know how many of those flags show a gun pointed at an Indian. But it's hard to tell a young child that that belongs to somebody. Understand that Minnesota is a Dakota word. We are the original caretakers. This state was created on the deceit and the destruction of the Dakota people. 1851 treaty basically helped to allow for the immigrants to occupy tribal lands. Conveniently, in 1858, the 1851 treaty stated we would reserve 10 miles north and south of the Minnesota River from Big Stone to New Ulm, approximately 150 miles. Shortly after, the state became acknowledged as the, I believe, 32nd state. I don't know. I'm not much of a historian from that sense. But Dakota leaders were summoned to Washington, D.C. and basically held captive until they then turned over the north side of the river 10 miles by 150 miles. One of those leaders was a man named Wamdi Tonka, Big Eagle. He is buried about 2 miles from my home in one of our cemeteries. So you look at that part, and to say that the man's plowing up our land, and I appreciate Representative Freiberg making mention of the Seth Eastman poem, but it does depict every moment pushing us further and further away. And I will mention 1862, again, part of who we are, and became known as the Sioux Uprising, then the U.S.-Dakota War, then the Dakota War. But basically it was the United States who failed in their treaty obligations to our people that starved us to the point of we had no other choice but to try to preserve and protect what we had left in that short war. Then gave the United States the opportunity in the state of Minnesota to further push us into that sunset. I believe it was Governor Ramsey, at the insistence of made to the United States, that Indian Removal Act of 1863 be enacted, So there are at least 4 of us here who are in violation of that federal law which says the Dakota people will forever be removed from these lands. So I'm sitting here on land that was stolen from my mother's people in violation of federal law to say I'm not even allowed here right now, where you all make the greatest impact for all of us as Minnesotans. I said to you earlier, Madam Chair, that I respect the sovereignty and the choices you make, in as much as I expect that sovereignty be honored when you come to tribal lands. So again, this flag is problematic, and I just lay it out there as a simple truth, as we could be seen from eyes that are different from most of the immigrants. But you know, not too many years ago, just a few miles away, there was a man who died and put the spotlight on racism and racial disparities. And I mentioned to Representative Freiberg, as Dakota people, we're invisible in our own land. Not many people know that Minnesota is a Dakota word, you know. But I know there was a state down south, they found their flag offensive and they changed it in a matter of 6 to 8 weeks. So anything's possible, and I appreciate your time today. I know that you're all busy, and I have to get home. I'm heading into an awesome storm, so I ask that you all be safe in all of your travels. And if there's any questions for me, I would gladly honor that request and answer them for you best I can. Otherwise, I'll be on my way.
Thank you, Chairman Jensvold, and you've left us with some really important words about our flag representing and honoring all Minnesotans, and that our flag represents our morals and our values. And I thank you for being the responsible steward of this land, that your people, this is their ancestral and current home. So thank you very much for those words.
I appreciate that. If I could add just one more thing, I guess. My mother always said, don't leave anything unsaid, right? But, you know, Governor Walz talked about one Minnesota here not long ago when he got inaugurated. I was sitting over there down in the 4th or 5th row over there, but I didn't feel like it included my people. He stood in front of a podium that had a great big golden seal that depicted exactly what is very difficult for my people. There are 4 Dakota bands bordered or bounded by the state of Minnesota now, and I know at least 3 of them, for reasons similar to what I've just stated, don't fly that flag. You know, whether people notice or not, you know, there's certain things, only certain things we can do, and that's just to bring attention to difficulties that are posed. And the truth, such as it is, it just sits there. It is neither this or that. It simply exists in this day and age. None of us helped to create those things, but we can be here to change those things if we deem it appropriate. So I'll leave that with all of you, and again, thank you for your time. Wopida.
Next, we have Nathaniel Dennis, who is a student from Winona. If you'd please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
My name is Nathaniel Dennis, and I am a senior from Winona Senior High School. Madam Chair, representatives, our state flag is honestly not a symbol that we should be flying. It has no pride. Nobody takes pride in the Minnesota state flag. And that is why I'm here today, is to bring back pride to the Minnesota state flag for one Minnesota, whether it's rural Minnesota, urban Minnesota, white, Native American, Latino. Everybody should feel pride in the state flag. And that is the reason why it needs to change is because I do not feel pride with the state I have grown up in for my whole 18 years of my life. I've lived in Minnesota, and not once have I looked at the flag and said, oh, I love that flag. That's my home. And I want to feel pride in my state flag. I want to feel pride in it. And I believe everybody in this room wants to feel pride with it too. So as we go about debating how the commission's going to be set up, how we're going to change our state flag, keep that in mind. We want pride in Minnesota, and that comes from changing the state flag and state seal.
Thank you very much. I'm not aware of any other amendments to House File 274. Is there discussion to the bill? Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one question, and I'm curious why the members of the legislature appointed to the commission aren't able to vote.
Chair Freiberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Nadeau. My understanding is there's, since they're performing essentially an administrative function, there's kind of a separation of powers issue. And members of the legislature shouldn't be involved in those decisions. Mr. Gehring might be able to speak to that issue as well.
Mr. Gehring.
Madam Chair, Representative Nadeau, yeah, so Representative Freiberg, I think, described it correctly. So there's separation of powers principles at stake whenever you create a commission like this, and legislators, because legislators are housed within the legislative branch of government, are constitutionally prohibited from engaging in sort of decision-making, that sort of policy decision-making in this commission, because it is designed to actually adopt a new flag on its own. That would be a sort of executive administrative function that would cause constitutional issues if legislators had a direct vote in that decision.
Thank you. Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I support the commission making the decision. I just thought I would throw my 2 cents in on, I would encourage the flag to have something about water. We're all made of water. Water runs through us. So that's my 2 cents worth to the commission, is I would hope to have something representing water.
Representative Koznick.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Freiberg. You've been working on this for a while, so I appreciate that. You're a little bit famous on it for your comments on a podcast recently, so congratulations on that as well. But in the packet here, we have, there's a letter, and part of it, by setting up the commission, you have a number of people from a variety of different backgrounds and some of the ethnic councils. But one of the public had submitted a letter, and we have a whole variety of backgrounds that have helped provide progress in this state. And can you maybe address for that public person that had mentioned, part of the letter says, meanwhile, all Caucasians of Scandinavian heritage are excluded, along with scores of others not represented by the specific government council created. So maybe not fully representative. How much was this kind of an oversight or deliberate to exclude other ethnicities that have contributed much to the state of Minnesota? I think of our northern Minnesota mining heritage, the ethnicities that helped create that part of the state and contributed quite a bit in the Iron Range there, along with other areas. Can you comment on that, please?
Chair Freiberg.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think it's accurate to state that any ethnic group or that Caucasian Americans are excluded from membership. The state's made a decision that, in terms of the ethnic councils, these are state agencies, and the state has made a decision that it's important to amplify the voices of these communities. So since they are state agencies representing specific groups in Minnesota, I believe it's appropriate to include membership representing those communities here. Certainly the view of Caucasian Minnesotans has been well represented throughout history. But there are 3 members, and just so the public's aware too, I think it's important to highlight who else is members. 3 members of the public appointed by the governor, In addition to the ethnic councils, one member representing the Dakota community, one member representing the Ojibwe community. The Secretary of State or the Secretary of State's designee. The Secretary of State is listed in statute as the keeper of the seal, so I believe it's appropriate to include the Secretary of State. The Executive Director of the Minnesota Historical Society, or the Director's designee, and the Historical Society is in fact in charge of convening them, and there is a representative from the Historical Society here if there are technical questions about that aspect of the bill. But certainly I think the Historical Society would be well equipped to know about the state's mining heritage, which I agree is very important. The Chair of the Capital Area Architecture and Planning Board, the Chair of the Minnesota Arts Board, the Executive Director of the Explore Minnesota Tourism, or the Director's designee. And then I do think it's important to have input from legislators as well. So there's 2 members of the House, 2 members of the Senate, 1 of each of the major parties. I don't think anyone's excluded from membership. I think it's agencies that we as the legislature have entrusted with various responsibilities, and I think they are the appropriate people to include as members of the board.
And Chuck, Representative Koznick, I'd also like to refer you to line 3.25 in the DE2, where it says, must also solicit public feedback and suggestions.
Thank you for that addition, Madam Chair.
Was there a follow-up?
I appreciate the response from the author. And I would also add that as a 8-year member of one of the ethnic councils on their board as a legislative, that was my honor to serve on that council. I do agree it's appropriate to have the councils on a commission like this if that's what we do, but I don't think it was fully answered or very satisfactorily answered why a lot of other ethnicities that may not have an ethnic council specifically as a kind of an agency of the state is excluded when it's very much obvious that the ethnicities are an important part of what you're trying to do with a council like this, and there are a lot of ethnicities that are excluded, and we'll just leave it at that, but it's quite obvious, I'd say. And so I appreciate the comment from the public that shared that.
Thank you, Representative Koznick. Representative Harder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Freiberg, my question that I have, I need some clarification or some help with this. So it relates to the makeup of the committee. And there's a number of individuals or councils that are listed. Is there a reason why there is only 2 recommended by the Indian Affairs Council? Shouldn't that be perhaps more?
Chair Freiberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Harder. I'm certainly willing to work with you on that. Initially, there was an earlier version of the bill had only 1, in fact, and that was a direct suggestion from representatives of our tribal communities. They suggested including 1 member of the Dakota community and 1 member of the Ojibwe community. I think that is a very important group, just given that they are currently depicted on the seal and on the flag. I think that is a very important group to include. So that there are 2, which is more than other groups, but I'm certainly willing to work with you if you think the number should be higher.
Representative Harder, follow-up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps, maybe you should look at that. So I'm looking at, the governor gets to appoint 3. Maybe he should have less and allow the Indian Affairs Council to appoint more. That's just my suggestion.
Thank you, Representative Harder. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I will renew my motion that House File 274 be re-referred to Ways and Means. All those in favor of the motion, please say, oh, as amended. Thank you very much for that catch. Thank you. So House File 274 be recommended to be re-referred to Ways and Means. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion prevails, and House File 274, as amended, is re-referred to Ways and Means.
Thank you.